Hello, welcome back to Buckle Up. My name's Jasper and this is the latest Toyota Prius, and now it's a car that you might actually want to buy. This generation of Prius is less private hire and more private buyer. It looks so much better than the previous generation car. The front is so sleek. This design is excellent. The way the headlamp clusters curve round and you've got this extra little bit of nose, your Toyota badge here, this bit of grille styling, front parking sensors, and look at how smooth and sleek and stylish this looks. It is incredible how much a little bit of a styling change at the front of the car has made it so much more interesting to look at and so much more appealing. The only thing I don't like about the outside of this car is this paintwork. This is a metallic optional extra paint, which is about 650 quid, and to be honest, it's a metallic silver. I'd be going for the amazing yellow paint, which does make the car look absolutely brilliant. Coming to the side of the car, you'll really see just how sleek this front portion of it is. And actually, I draw your attention to the rake on this windscreen because it's actually a more aggressive angle of rake than a Lamborghini Huracan has. So, you know, look at my sports Prius. This is the entry-level design trim, and as you can tell, it's got keyless entry and go, which is a very nice accessible bit of technology to have on the base trim. You can also tell it's the base trim because of these alloy wheels. This is the second thing that I don't particularly like about the side of the car because, I mean, they just look a little bit cheap, but they are very aerodynamic, so my opinion is quite split on that. You do have an alloy wheel with a kind of plastic efficiency cover over it, but weirdly, they don't even have the Toyota badge in the centre of them. If you go for the more expensive trim level, you get some lovely 19-inch alloys, which are less efficient, but look a lot better than these wheels. As we move back along the length of the car, you'll see a lovely gloss black door mirror, a very sleek, sloping, coupe-style roofline, and rear doors, which have got electronic door releases up high. Not quite the most practical, but definitely more aerodynamic and cleaner than having a door handle here. Speaking of clean lines as well, look at this. Look at how stylish this is. So much better than the outgoing model. Another way this is maybe better than the outgoing model is I've got a flap on this side which has got a Type 2 charging port in it. And that's because this Prius is exclusively available in the UK market as a plug-in hybrid. So we've not just got the conventional hybrid wizardry that Toyota are famed for with this model, you've now got a larger 13.6 kilowatt hour battery which you can plug in to charge up. To charge that at home, you're looking at somewhere around 4.5 hours, and this battery pack is actually smaller and more energy dense and therefore more efficient in terms of space than the battery packs used in previous Toyota plug-in hybrids. You do still have a conventional fuel filler on the other side of the car, which you have to release inside the cabin, which I find bizarre given you can push this to open it, but never mind about that. The back of the Prius is again more modern, sleeker, and it just looks so much better. I really like this drop off at the edge of the vehicle and this nice haunch as well. It's very smooth, quite flowing design, and it looks very premium because of your large Prius lettering across the boot. Your Toyota badge is nestled nicely above this light bar-esque bit of rear styling, and it just all ties together so nicely. You retain the ever-practical hatchback element of the Prius, and whilst this car is a smidge lower than it was before, the wheelbase has grown, but the boot is so-so because it's, after all, a plug-in hybrid. So if I pop this open, the lower trim level is a manual boot, but if you get the more expensive one, this is an electronic boot. This is the only area of the interior of this car that's not really good enough for me. So you've got 284 litres of luggage space back here, and because you've got a very smooth coupe style profile, you don't really benefit from the height that you get in a traditional hatchback boot. And while Toyota's engineers usually get absolutely everything right, This parcel shelf is an abomination. And yes, you can remove it and you can fold it in half to get it out the way, but it doesn't open wide enough. These hooks should be here, so then it moves up nicely out the way. Every time I've gone in the boot this week, I've hit my head on this. Because the boot's not very deep, but goes a long way back, you have to lean into the car to actually get stuff into it. And I always keep hitting my head on this. Thankfully, you can kind of just do that and it'll stay there, but I shouldn't have to do that if the engineers had mounted this here. That would have just made so much more sense. Anyway, you get a bag with your cables in the boot. A Type 2 charging cable for charging when you're out and about, and a 3-pin home charger. If I owned this car though, and I was charging at home, I would be leaving this bag at home, because it's quite large and it does take up a considerable amount of this boot space. But the boot space is nice and sensible. You've got some tie-down points, you've got a bit of a cubby over here, and you've got a 3-pin 230-volt socket on the side of it, which is very handy. So yes, you've got kind of vehicle to load built into this car without a stupid extra adapter. Underneath the boot floor, you've got some space for your tyre repair kit, toolkit, and a massive piece of polystyrene, and that's pretty much it. This boot, what you see is very much what you get. The rear seats fold in a 60/40 configuration, and when they fold down, you've got flaps that keep your boot floor nice and continuous. So elements of this have been really well thought out and very well designed, but just not quite everything. Hopping into the back of the Prius, it is kind of similar to the previous generation in the sense that the lovely sweeping roofline does eat into your headroom. So if I sit bolt upright, my head does actually touch the ceiling back here. So obviously what I would need to do is slouch a little bit. So people who are 182 centimeters tall will be okay if there's a shorter driver and they can stick their feet out and then slouch. But somebody like me who's 173 centimeters tall, I've just about got enough space to not have to slouch back here. What I will say though is, whilst headroom is compromised, legroom is pretty decent because the extra length that was put into the wheelbase has paid dividends in the cabin. So with this seat in my own driver's position, I've got more than enough knee room, and yeah, headroom okay. If the driver were taller, this seat would come further back, but even so, I would just about have enough knee room to jiggle my legs about. What you've also got in this cabin is a bit of a sea of various different shades of grey. The material doesn't feel particularly cheap though, it just looks quite cheap. Around the door handle, you've got a proper door handle here, but an electronic one up there. I find that baffling. And then lower down in the door card, I've got a cushioned elbow rest, and then I've got space for a reusable bottle of water in a bottle holder low down. I've also got a pair of cup holders in this fold down armrest. They are quite large and they don't really have any guides, so smaller things will rattle around in them. The material on the seats is nice and supportive. The foam is good, quite cushioning, and yeah, it's relatively comfortable, and the middle seat is actually quite wide. It is slightly raised over the outer two, so put a shorter person in the middle, but 3 people shouldn't be too bad back here for comfort on short to medium journeys. There's not too much of a hump in the floor, and you do also have some extra practical touches. So I've got ISOFIX points, which are nice and accessible, however the covers do remove, so you will lose those. And then I've got a pair of USB Type-C charging ports in the footwell on the back of the centre console. No dedicated vents for the rear passengers though, and there's only a map pocket on the back of the passenger seat. So it's a bit of a mixed bag in terms of you've got some elements of practical touches, but not everything you might want if you were using this as, say, a family vehicle. Up front, it is very nice, actually. It is very grey, but you've got a good range of materials and everything does feel pretty premium. So you've got soft touch dashboard, a nice textured plastic across this section, and you've got some nice little Easter eggs in here. You've got the text Prius across the centre of this bit of dashboard, just underneath your infotainment screen. You've got a hashtag hidden compartment at the bottom. And then I do also like what Toyota have done as well, because there's a little Prius emblem in the stress reducers on the windscreen up here. Your rear windscreen has the Prius text in one of the heating elements, and you've also got some text on a piece of plastic visible when you open the boot that says Hybrid Reborn, and you've got some text under the bonnet as well. So they've given you a few little nice things to look at. The steering wheel is pretty decent, and what I really like to see is I've got proper buttons for everything. No climate control functionality in the screen whatsoever. I've got a proper row of buttons here, and then on my steering wheel I've got proper physical buttons. I must say, I do think the steering wheel looks a bit like it's melted in the sun and kind of drooped, but that's just the styling. And then all of the switchgear does feel very nice, and actually I think some of it feels quite premium. Down here in the center console I've got some more proper buttons and my electronic parking brake release. No heated seats on this trim. If you go for the more expensive XL trim, you get heated and ventilated front seats, the buttons for which go nicely in your climate control section here. The infotainment screen is excellent. It's a 12.3-inch display. It's Toyota's latest system. The graphics on it are really crisp and clear, and it's very responsive, feels quite like a smartphone. And whilst Toyota's built-in stuff is pretty decent, let's face it, you're probably going to be using phone mirroring. So you've got wireless Apple CarPlay, but wired Android Auto. You've got two USB Type-C ports down here, one for charging, one for data connection, a 12-volt socket, that's all above your hashtag hidden compartment, a pair of cup holders, a slot for a mobile phone, and there's space to run a cable through to two USB Type-C charging ports in this armrest. So no wireless charging here, but let's face it, if you're using wireless Apple CarPlay, wireless charging your phone at the same time isn't the best idea. You do have a decent sized glove box, which is damp, and then you've got decent sized door bins as well, which take a reusable bottle of water, as do those aforementioned cup holders. This infotainment screen is in easy reach, and then they do this kind of digital cockpit style thing that Peugeot like to do, but I think Toyota have done a slightly better job of it. So you look over the top of the steering wheel to see your driver's instrumentation cluster. That does sit nice and high, but I am conscious that a driver who is a tad shorter than I am might start seeing some of that get blocked by this steering wheel. If you're tall though, you'll have absolutely no problem seeing all of the information up there. The graphics on that are not as good as the ones on the center screen, and also it's a bit of a fiddly menu system, so you interact with it exclusively using buttons on the steering wheel, and that's where all of your driver ADAS systems are. So if you want to turn off the distraction monitoring or speed limit warning, you've got to kind of fiddle about with a lot of buttons to get to it, and the logos and graphics aren't particularly clear, so you do have to know what things are abbreviated to find them and turn them off. I think though what we should do is fire up the old hybrid system and take this PHEV out for a drive. The previous generation of Prius could really have been summed up as something that was relatively slow and not that great to drive. I'm very pleased to report that this generation of Prius has made major improvements when it comes to drivability and also how fast it is. This has a 2-litre normally aspirated petrol engine mated to Toyota's insanely clever electronic CVT. That means you've got a pair of motors and a couple of planetary gear sets, and all of those motors and that engine juggle things around to drive you in the most efficient way possible. This, obviously being a plug-in hybrid, means that you can run in EV mode only for a longer distance. And the WLTP figures say that in theory, in EV mode alone, on this trim level, I should be able to do about 53 miles of driving. Now, I think real world, you're probably only going to see somewhere in the region of 35 to 40 miles, but that's still pretty decent. This is, after all, a very slippery, efficient car. It's got a CD of just 0.27. When it comes to how fast this car is, that new 2-litre petrol engine combined with the new, more powerful motor mean your combined total power output at peak is 223 PS, which is basically about 102 PS more than the outgoing model. So that means that you can get yourself from 0 to 62 miles an hour in this in 6.8 seconds, which is remarkably impressive for something so efficient. Now, I do keep talking about efficiency, and to be honest, I'm not even going to bother giving you the combined WLTP figure for this car, because for plug-in hybrids, the WLTP cycle is just not representative of what you'll get in the real world. What I can tell you though is, in the real world, you will easily easily get mid-60s mpg in this as long as you're charging it regularly. To be honest, let's face it, if you're driving fewer than 30 miles a day and you can charge it at home, you'll never really need the petrol engine, and in that case you should just buy an electric car. But this has got a very usable electric range, so you don't need the engine very much. Now, if you are charging on a somewhat regular basis, yes, you should very easily be able to do 65 plus mpg. And if you completely deplete the battery, you should still be able to see at least 50 mpg in real world driving because of how good Toyota's eCVT system is for efficient driving. The other thing that the Prius has going for it in this case is it's genuinely quite good to drive. You've got McPherson strut suspension up front and double wishbone at the rear, and it's very direct steering. The chassis is genuinely quite impressive and the car is quite light. This tips the scales in this trim at just over 1,550 kilos, and it will hug the road quite well. You've got quite low rolling resistance tyres though, so that does mean that if you are pushing harder, you will tend towards understeer quite easily. It is a very pleasing little thing to drive though, the Prius, and for something that's so slippery and so economically focused, it's genuinely quite refreshing to have it drive very well as well. You do have some different drive modes. You've got Eco, Normal, Sport and Custom. If you put it in Sport, not really much happens other than the fact the steering gets heavier, but you still don't get much feeling. As well as your different drive modes, in terms of response, you do also have different drive modes in terms of how the powertrain works. So you've got a purely EV based mode, which will obviously just essentially drain the chargeable battery pack and then switch over to hybrid running mode. You've got a hybrid mode where the car will intelligently select between sipping from the battery pack and sipping from the petrol engine. And then you've got a hybrid mode which will actually hold the charge of the plug-in battery pack, meaning that essentially you are running it as a hybrid vehicle if it didn't have the plug-in element. So that means you can save your electric charge for later. In that case, you should expect to still see at least 50 miles to the gallon because this is a very efficient vehicle. Other than being genuinely quite good on a country road, the Prius is absolutely excellent for both urban and extra-urban driving. So this has got a full suite of ADAS systems, all of which are actually very good. The lane keep assist on this is very, very impressive, and you've got fully adaptive cruise control on the base trim of this too. That means that it's an absolute breeze doing a longer distance motorway drive in this vehicle. Combine that with excellent blind spot monitoring, front collision warning, cross-traffic alerts. This is a very safe car, and Toyota have implemented those systems incredibly well. The final thing to talk about really with this, having covered driving and running costs, is price. And that's because the design trim starts from just over £37,500, which is actually a very affordable price point for what is a very, very good plug-in hybrid vehicle. If you want to add some better alloys, which you can do on this, you can choose some 17-inch ones that look nicer than these kind of wheel trim ones. You're going to pay a little bit, as you will do for this paint. I'd go for the yellow or the really nice but more expensive metallic red. But the most important thing about that starting price, even with some optional extras, you still sit underneath the UK's £40,000 luxury car VED band, which means that you will save yourself a fair old chunk of change over the first few years of ownership. The car also comes with a 3-year manufacturer's warranty, which seems a little bit stingy, but as long as you service with a Toyota dealership, they will extend that for 12-month intervals up until the car is 10 years old. And if there's one thing Toyotas are very good at being, it is reliable. This is proven architecture. Toyota are just really good at making things run for a long period of time. For me, with the Prius then, there is a lot to like. It's very easy to drive, it's very comfortable to drive, it's a very capable family hatchback, and it will not cost the earth to buy, and it certainly will not cost you the earth to run, especially if you can plug it in and charge it up regularly at home. So that is the new Toyota Prius, and I hope you can agree with me when I say that this is a much more desirable car than its predecessor. Toyota have worked some absolute magic with the styling, and with it being a plug-in hybrid, it is more attractive to a wider range of buyers. So let me know in the comments, would you buy a Toyota Prius? Whilst you're down there, have a look at all of the links in the video description. If you've not done so already, please do subscribe to the Buckle Up YouTube channel and give this video a like if you have enjoyed it. There are a couple of other ways you can support the channel. One is directly here on YouTube with channel memberships, and the second is buying some lovely merchandise from our merch store linked in the video description. That is everything for today's video. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!